Hello and welcome to the Knit and Grace podcast. Let's talk about big box yarn shopping. Hi there and welcome or welcome back if you are a returning viewer. If you are new here, my name is Mia and I am the maker behind Knit and Grace. And today I wanted to talk about shopping for yarn at your big box craft store. So I think most of this is going to be relatable primarily to our US and a Canadian audience. I'm not sure about big box stores in other countries, but I know like in Europe and some countries you can even buy yarn at like the supermarkets and things like that. So yeah, I want to sort of talk about your kind of big name brand yarns, big box store, craft store, shopping, all that jazz in today's video. And then, of course, all this goes to say that whenever you are able, definitely supporting small businesses, indie dyers, smaller yarn brands, even if they are considered more kind of big name brands, etc., is definitely ideal. But, you know, sometimes you need a quick yarn fix, or you're on a budget, or you're gifting something, and these yarns are really, really great for that, and big box craft stores are even better for making sure that you can get your yarn very quickly. So here in the US, we have three major big box craft stores. One is Joann, which is the one that I frequent most often. The other is Michael's, and then the third is Hobby Lobby. So 9 times out of 10, these stores are fairly close to you wherever you are in the US. I actually have 3 Joann stores all within a 30-minute radius of my house in like any given direction, north, south, and west. I have 2 Michael's stores both within like 15 minutes of my house, and I think that there is a Hobby Lobby about 15 minutes away from my house as well. However, I don't typically shop at Hobby Lobby. But yeah, these are stores that are really close to you, especially when you're in areas that maybe is more rural or more suburban and you may not have a local yarn shop available to you. So first and foremost, I think that that is kind of the biggest draw to buying yarn at big box stores is the accessibility, especially for places and for people who may not necessarily have a local yarn shop near them. Now, I personally have 3 local yarn shops that are pretty near me, and they offer a pretty, you know, varied selection of yarns, but sometimes you just want either yarn when the hours are not, they're not open. So, you know, local yarn shops tend to have much shorter hours. For instance, like both of my Joanns that I go to are open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day. So that is a big appeal, even when you do have a local yarn shop near you. Whenever you need anything last minute, it is really great to just go to one of these stores and pick something up. So the accessibility, I would say, is probably the biggest draw for me when it comes to shopping at a big box store. So in connection with the accessibility, it's also that quick access, that quick fix to being able to get your yarn. You can drive to one of these stores very quickly, and then again, because you are driving, there is no shipping. So you get your quick fix of yarn. You can pick something up very quickly if you're, you know, casting on a project last minute, especially if you're gift knitting, and then you don't have to pay shipping because, of course, while we are going to talk about some budget yarns today that I personally have used and would recommend to you all, there are other budget yarn options that aren't available at a big box store, right? But you still would have to pay shipping if you're ordering it online through like a Webs or any other type of, you know, online yarn shop. You know, like Wool Warehouse comes to mind. I order a lot from them with regard to some of my European yarns. So, you know, but all of these come at a price of not only shipping, but also the added carbon footprint of, you know, getting the yarn to you versus you being able to drive anywhere between 5 to 30 minutes to pick something up that you might need for a project. And so the other piece that, you know, is definitely, I think for me anyway, a big draw to going to these stores is that a lot of these stores have, or I should say all of these stores have access to tons of other crafting supplies as well as home decor. So I feel like whenever I go to Joann for one thing, I don't ever just leave with that one thing that I have in mind. And I think that's part of the reason why I primarily go to Joann versus a Michael. Joann also has a very large selection of fabric. Michael's does have sort of a selection of pre-cut fabrics, but they're more into like the other crafting supplies. Like they have tons and tons of florals, which Joann doesn't really have as much of. They have like a lot of floral crafts, a lot of like wedding crafts. I know they have like a huge like wedding section at my local Michael's. So you can not only go in to buy all of your yarn that you might need for a project, but you can pick up other things that you might need around the house, or, you know, if you're like me and you have multiple crafts that you engage in, especially as the seasons change. So like now as we're in summer, I tend to sew a lot more. You can pick up everything that you need at one place, and that's kind of the functionality of it being, you know, a big box store, right? It means that you can go in and get everything that you need all in one place, and it's pretty great actually, if you ask me. And so I think that on top of like the convenience of the accessibility and being able to quickly get my yarn, and the fact that these yarns are already, you know, what I would consider budget yarns, you also have the fact that many of these stores often have sales and coupons. So if you sign up for their newsletters, or even just if you look up their weekly circular, there are always sales and coupons that are available to you. So you can buy some of these yarns at an even further reduced price. And then not only can you purchase all of your, you know, yarns, but let's say if you're someone like me who always likes to get an extra because you don't want to run out of yarn, like I recently did in a project that I was making, you can also easily return any excess yarn that you have, so that you don't have those onesie, twosie bits of yarn in your stash. Now, I will say that most online shops will allow returns, although there's usually a shipping cost associated with that, so you are having to pay shipping to send the yarn back. And then even then, a lot of the times the return window is much shorter. So if you are someone who is, you know, browsing or shopping sales, by the time that you actually get around to knitting up the yarn, you may no longer be able to return it, versus at a big box store where they have very you know, lenient return policies. Like I think Joann has like a, as long as you have your receipt, they will always take it back type of thing. I think like Michael's accepts returns like within a year, so they have much longer return windows, so that way you actually don't hold on to these spare bits of yarn in your stash. And this is actually something that I recently took advantage of on a recent trip to Joann, which I will show you all in a little bit. While I was there, I also was able to return some yarn that I no longer needed from some recent projects that I was making. Now, that said, some of the things that you need to think about, or one of the things that you need to think about when you're shopping at a big box store, is because of things like returning or the fact that they're constantly getting inventory at actually a very regular basis, you have to be very careful to check dye lots. And so this is something that has happened to me before when I ordered some yarn from Joann for pickup, especially because if the person who is, you know, picking up the yarn, if you're ordering yarn for pickup, they're just going to grab the first however many number of the yarns that you're getting, and they may be different dye lots. For me, I was lucky that they still had, you know, enough of the one dye lot that I was able to exchange the different dye lot yarn out. But that is one thing to keep a really close eye out when you are shopping at a big box store, that unlike when you're going to a local yarn shop, the dye lots are all going to be the same because they're getting all of their inventory at once. When you go to a big box shop or a craft store, they're not gonna always have the same dye lots because they may receive multiple shipments even within a week. So I've seen situations, actually when I just went to Joann, where the basket was completely full of yarn, so you could tell that they had just gotten a shipment, and even as I was taking the yarn out, there was a different dye lot in there. So always make sure that, you know, while you can take advantage of those returns, you make sure that doesn't bite you and you check your dye lots. And then I think that, you know, the other big thing that I like these stores for, especially because as I mentioned, the accessibility and the fact that they're everywhere and they're, you know, typically long store hours, is that they do have really great basic notions for knitters. So thinking about Joann and Michael's, they carry like the Clover brand of needles, the Takumi Clover, and they even have interchangeables, so you can you know, stock up on interchangeable needles, you know, one at a time, or, you know, even one of their interchangeable needle sets. You can use one of those coupons that always come out if you want to buy an interchangeable needle set at a much lower price. But yeah, I mean, this is like, if I'm out, a lot of the times when I am actually like traveling, sometimes if I don't plan correctly, I either won't have my needles, or for some reason I will have misplaced my stitch markers or anything like that. And these stores are really great to just run into and get exactly what you need. I mean, I couldn't even tell you the number of US 5 16-inch Clover needles that I have, because for whatever reason I always decide to knit a hat when I'm on vacation on a whim, just buy a skein of yarn and knit a hat. And for whatever reason, my favorite hat patterns are always knit on US 5 needles, and I never have US 5 needles, so I always go into my closest Joann's or Michael's and buy myself a US 5 16-inch Clover bamboo needle. So definitely the greatest place to go to in a bind, especially when you are traveling reselling within the country. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, Michaels is pretty prevalent in Canada as well, from what I understand. You know, not that whenever I've gone to Canada, I haven't sought these places out. I usually seek out local yarn shops. But from my understanding, like a Michaels is pretty prevalent in Canada as well. So again, whenever you need something super last minute and your local yarn shop, if you do have a local yarn shop is closed, you can go to one of these stores and just pick something up. And then I think the last thing that I want to point out to with regard to why I personally like shopping at big box yarn stores is that they are very crochet friendly. You know, you're gonna find all of your various crochet hooks. They always have a lot of crochet you know, sort of notions. Also, they have a lot of crochet friendly yarns. So something that a lot of people don't know is that you can't necessarily crochet with every single yarn because of the way that the yarn needs to be twisted, because of the way that you work your crochet stitch. So they have crochet friendly yarns. And then just in general, they're actually, I would actually say that they're more crochet friendly than they are knit friendly. A lot of the times in terms of just the yarns that they carry also. And you know, something that I have experienced from, you know, both working in a local yarn shop and going to multiple local yarn stores with people who are crocheters, for some reason, like, knitters look down on crocheters, and which I just don't understand. Like, I started out my career, crafting career, actually crocheting. I learned to crochet when I was 6 years old, before I even learned to sew or knit or anything. And I still do crochet from time to time. So I personally think that they are just, you know, they're two sides of a different coin. They're your yarn crafts, and I personally love to crochet. But I feel like sometimes when crocheters go into local yarn shops, it can feel a little weird. Like, people are like, ooh, you're a crocheter. And some local yarn shops don't even carry any type of crochet notions, such as not needles, as crochet hooks and things like that. So I think that, you know, unfortunately, but fortunately also, your big box craft stores are a great place for crocheters to be able to go and experience some notions and craft supplies in person. So in terms of the types of yarn that you are going to find when you go to one of these big box stores is, I will say, first and foremost, it's going to be acrylic and acrylic blends. That said, I think that a lot of these yarn brands have come a very long way with the way that they are making their acrylic yarns, that they don't pill, they're very lightweight, they're very comparable to those animal and cellulose-based fibers as well. And they're definitely a great alternative when you're gifting a knit and you don't know if the person is, you know, sort of knit worthy, in the sense, are they going to take care of this? If you're gifting baby knits, often, you know, acrylic is much easier to use because of its washability. And you know, you don't want to ever give a new parent something that they need to take care of unless you know, like, that person very well, and you know that they will take care of those things the way that they need to be. So yeah, and then also, you know, there are people who are actually allergic to, like, animal-based fibers. So obviously for you, either a cellulose or an acrylic will suit you better. I would say after the acrylic, these stores are amazing for your cellulose-based fibers. So that's your plant-based fibers, your cottons, your cotton blends, linen. I've seen a lot more in these stores as well. You know, a lot of the things that come to mind, even, like, not only do they have, like, your softer cottons, but, you know, a lot of people who start out crocheting, they'll start out making dishcloths. You have, like, your perfect, like, dishcloth, like, what is the brand? It's called, like, Sugar and Cream, which is the, like, traditional dishcloth cotton, and I've made, you know, a few market bags from that. So, you know, you're gonna find a lot of those yarns here as well. But if you know what you're looking for, you can find animal fibers, and not only animal fiber blends, but 100% animal fibers. And so in terms of the big brands that you're going to find at these big box craft stores, you're going to find your Lion brand, you're going to find your Patons, you're going to find Karen, and you're going to find Yarnspirations, which is also Bernat. So those are sort of the big name brands that you will find at these stores. Additionally, these stores tend to have in-house brands. So for Joann, they have the K&C line, which stands for knit and crochet. And I actually absolutely love the K&C line at Joann. Michael's has Loops and Thread, which is their house brand, and I have worked with the Loops and Thread yarn before, but it was more for baby knits on the like acrylic blend side, and those held up really well, very easy to work with, very nice to you know, to work up with. And then at Hobby Lobby, from my understanding, they only carry their house brand, so they don't actually carry any big brand yarns, and so their house brand is Yarn Bee. So if you go to Hobby Lobby, you won't be able to find the other brands, you will only be able to find their house brand Yarn Bee. And so with that, I have a few clips that I took from a recent trip that I took to Joann's that I want to show you all. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a voiceover or not, but I will show you sort of the video. I didn't speak while I was there, and I was kind of covertly filming. We happened to be there on July 3rd, so the store was actually quite busy, and so I had to be a little you know, covert about my filming. I don't want to be like very in their face, like, oh, you're filming in the store. And then, although there was like this one lady who was also in the yarn section at the same time that I was there, and she was getting very annoyed by my filming. But I will cut to some B-roll, and then we will come back to go over what I have personally made with some of these big box yarn brand yarns. So I am going to feature technically 4 but 3 patterns today, and they will all be linked in the description down below as always. And I am actually going to tell you how much yarn I use and how much it cost, so that you can kind of understand why, you know, this is really a great option. You know, I'm still going to buy my indie dyed, I'm still going to buy my small business yarns, but you know, sometimes if you're on a budget, if you are needing something last minute, like I've mentioned, these are completely amazing options to actually use. So the first thing that I want to share with you all is what I'm wearing today, and why I said 3 and not 4 is because while I have the pattern and I know the pattern that I made, I don't remember how much the yarn cost or anything like this. I tested this pattern, I want to say like 3 years ago now. It was sometime during the pandemic, so it was like 2 or 3 years ago. But this is the Bobby Pullover by Gabriella Treminio. And I actually knit this up in Yarnspirations Bernat, so the Bernat line, in Softy Cotton, which is available, and I actually picked this one up at Joann. I believe this one's also available at Michael's. But this is a DK weight cotton acrylic blend, so it's 60% cotton, 40% acrylic, and again, I've had this for probably going on 3 years now, and it's held up wonderfully. I haven't had any major stretching, I haven't had any pilling or anything like that, and I absolutely love this top. It's a perfect summer top to throw on, you know, when I want to sort of add a little bit of color to my summer outfit. So the next yarn that I want to feature is the KnitandGrace socks, which I think is a really great line of yarn. And I have featured these on my podcast. I knit these in March of this year of 2023 using KnitandGrace sock, and ooh, it's getting a little dark in here. Let's see if we can get in a little closer. But I knit these in March of this year, and this is just a vanilla sock. It's a 3x1 flat rib sock. And this is the color, I want to say rose marl or rose something like that, but I'll have the information. I'll have the link to my Ravelry project page so you could see exactly how much yarn and everything that I used for this. But yeah, so this is some sock yarn that is readily available at Joann and Michael's. Although I will say that actually this sock yarn, I usually would find more of it and more color selections at Michael's than I do at Joann's. Joann usually has, or at least my Joann's, the 2 that I go to, have very limited supply of this sock yarn. But whenever I go to Michael's, they always have it, and they have like all of the colors available. So it's a really nice yarn, especially they do have solids, but they do have these sort of marled ones that kind of give you a subtle striping, which is really nice. So let's see, I have my notebook here. So this yarn retails for $7.49 per skein, and so they're 50-gram skeins, so you would need 2 for a pair of socks, which is a total of $14.98. And when I bought this yarn, I think that with this particular color they didn't have it in stock, so I ordered it to be delivered to the store, and I didn't have a coupon for that order, if I remember correctly, so I did pay the full $14.98 for the socks. And of course I do have some leftovers, but personally I don't believe in like adjusting the price for what you've used, because you still have to buy a whole of like the second, even if you only use a partial one. So we're counting that as $14.98, which I think is pretty amazing for a pair of socks, because when you're thinking about your hand-dyed sock yarn, you know, which I absolutely love, and I have tons of hand-dyed sock yarn, you know, that's my go-to choice. If you all have been here for a while, you know that if I'm out and I want to buy, you know, if I'm traveling and I want to buy a special skein, it's usually sock yarn. But you know, your hand-dyed sock yarn is going to be like anywhere from like $32 to $40. So for one skein, which is going to give you 1 pair of socks. And again, totally worth it, 100%. Will never stop buying hand-dyed sock yarn, but you know, buying or knitting a pair for $14, and of course if you can get a coupon even less, versus $40 is pretty great in my opinion. So the next pattern that I have to show you all is one that is very recently finished. So if you are a watcher of the podcast, you will have seen this before. And it is my Anchor Summer Shirt by Petite Knit. And it's currently folded up here. So I'll open it up for you. So this is what it looks like. And I'll go ahead and also insert some pictures of the shirt so that you can see it. And this one I knit up with Lion brand Kobu, which is a blend of cotton and bamboo. And so I don't remember, let me see, do I have it anywhere near me? I did have a little bit left over with the ball band, but I'm not seeing it yet, so I'll have to insert the information here for you. It is a cotton bamboo blend, and it was absolutely lovely to work with. It was such a joy to work with the yarn. It was so soft, and I've worn this top to death. Like, since I finally blocked it, I think I wore it something like 3 or 4 days in a row, and it's really holding up really well. There is no pilling, there is no stretching, there is no, I mean, over time it will stretch because it is a cotton bamboo, so it is, you know, a heavier fiber, but you know, initially from my initial wear, there's nothing, you know, that is, you know, standing out crazy over the top in terms of pilling or stretching or anything like that. And then in terms of cost, the Kobu, and I should mention, which I didn't mention before, this is all US dollars. So Canadian dollars are always going to be a little bit more. But here in US dollars, it retails for $6.49 per ball. It comes in little cake balls. And when I purchased this, I had a 25% coupon. I'd actually initially purchased 5 and I only needed the 4. So again, this is where it was really great. I could return the 5th one, which I actually did. And so the total price for 4 and ultimately that summer shirt was $19.48. So again, very affordable. Now I have a really beautiful summer shirt, and you know, to be completely honest, with a lot of my summer tops, I don't actually like to spend a lot of money because here in the Northeast, I can't wear even my summer knits for very long. So we are in July right now. We are getting into our proper summer here, and it'll probably be only maybe another week that I could wear my summer knits before I have to put them away until September. So, you know, the time frame that I can wear my summer knits is usually like, you know, the tail end of spring into the beginning of summer, which is about a month, 2 months long. And then again at the very end of summer into the fall, which is again another month to 2 months. So I'm really not wearing my summer knits for very long. And I, for that reason, actually don't like to spend a lot of money on yarn for my summer knits. So this is actually the perfect excuse for me to go to my local craft store and pick up some summer yarns. And so the last pattern that I have to share with you all, which again is a returning to the podcast, if you are a returning viewer, this is a slip over that I made from the Building Blocks Drop pattern by Amy Scher. And again, I will insert a picture of it worn here. And this top I knit in Lion brand Fisherman's Wool, which is, you know, really amazing, very cheap, rustic, 100% wool yarn from Lion brand. Absolutely love this, and you can actually see that there is some Lion brand Fisherman's Wool sitting right next to me as well. But this yarn is absolutely amazing. It comes in, how much do these weigh? Yeah, so they're 8 ounce, so they're 227 gram skeins. And it has 465 yards or 425 meters per skein. So you get a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to this rustic yarn. It is truly amazing. And it is classified as a worsted. However, I do think that it is a light worsted, so you could even use it for a DK weight project, and then you could also use it at a worsted weight gauge, which I personally think gives you a more drapey gauge. So this one actually is knit at a worsted weight gauge, and it's actually very, very drapey. You can see how drapey that is. And this is 100% non-superwash wool. So that shows you, you know, sort of why I think that it's more of a light worsted, and you can actually knit it up at a DK weight gauge, which I do have plans to do probably in the fall. So really, really great yarn. And so for the building blocks drop, the Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool retails for $13.99 per skein. And again, I was able to use a coupon for this one, so I used a 20% coupon. So that came out to $22.38 for 2 skeins of the Fisherman's Wool. So $22 for that vest, and I used less than half of the second one. I think I used 1.4 skeins. So I have plenty to make another small project like a hat. So the fact that you could get, you know, a pretty decent sized vest and a hat out of, you know, $22 is pretty amazing in my opinion. So that is all I have to share with you all today with regard to why I love shopping at big box craft stores. And actually, I will show you, I do have my next big box craft store project here with me. This is a yarn that, if you saw in the little clips that I put in, I actually discovered when I was actually in this trip, and so it has to be a very new yarn, and it is the Joann KNC line, so it is their house brand, and it is called the Essential Cotton. And so it is 100% cotton, and it is DK weight, and let me tell you, this is so soft. And so if I remember correctly, this one was $5.49 per skein, and again, I had a coupon, so I think I paid like $4 and change. So I picked up 5 of these for $22. And so my plan is, if you saw my last podcast episode where I have to frog my ranunculus, is that I'm actually going to make a summer ranunculus out of this yarn, inspired by Bethany and then now Haley, both made cream or white colored summer ranunculuses, or ranunculi, I guess. Is it ranunculi or ranunculuses? Whatever it is. So I did swatch, and I do have my gauge swatch here, and I'm really excited to cast this on. So I got a really nice gauge on this. I got 16 stitches per inch, and so I am going to go ahead and knit myself my next big box yarn project, which will be a ranunculus. So you all will see that probably in the next podcast episode or at some point this summer. But with all that said, that leads me to a knit along that I'm going to be hosting here on the channel. Technically, I'm going to be hosting it over on Instagram, just because it is easier for me to host it on Instagram than it is to host it like anywhere else, which I guess I would like host it like on Ravelry, I guess. But it is going to be an Instagram knit along, and it is going to be featuring Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. So my love affair with Fisherman's Wool is going to continue. I am going to be casting on a fall sweater with Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. It's actually a test knit, so I'll give you more information on that when the knit along officially kicks off, or I guess it's a make along. If you want to crochet, you can also crochet, but the knit, it's gonna officially be called a knit along, but of course crochet is welcome as well. And so I'll give you more information on what I plan to make when that kicks off on August 1st. And I'm going to be using this yarn right here. So these 3 skeins of Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool in the color Oatmeal. And I am actually going to hold it double with some Drops Kid Silk. So it's going to be a budget mohair sweater, friends. So I'm going to make a mohair sweater for less than $60. So stay tuned for that. But with regard to the knit along details, let me go ahead and give those to you now. So I have, or we will be using 2 hashtags for this knit along. And so the first one will be Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool knit along. So LBFWKAL, so KAL. And then there's going to be the FO thread, so finished object thread, which will be Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool KAL FO. And so the reason for that is because to participate in the knit along, you do have to have a finished object in Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. Now, the KAL is going to run from August 1st all the way until October 28th, so just over 12 weeks. And I will announce the winner in my November podcast episode. So that, I believe, is November 6th. November 5th is my November podcast episode. So you will have from August 1st, which will be our cast on date. I will put out a little video that day all the way until October 28th to knit or crochet up anything you'd like. So it doesn't have to be clothing, it could also be accessories, it doesn't have to be adult size, it could be child size. So you can enter multiple finished objects into the KAL as long as it is a finished object. So you'll have just over 12 weeks to complete a project and post it using the Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool KAL FO hashtag. But while we are going along the way, definitely post your pictures to the Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool KAL hashtag, and that way we can all interact with each other over on Instagram and have some fun. What else to tell you? Again, please only post FOs to the FO thread. That is where I am going to be drawing the winners from. And I'm going to have several prizes. So I'm going to have a first prize, and that is going to be available to the US and Canada, just because shipping is a bit expensive, and unfortunately the channel is not really bringing in tons of money. So this is kind of coming out of my own pocket. So the first tier prize is going to be available to those in the US and Canada. However, I'm planning on having 3 digital prizes, so 3 patterns that I will provide to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th winner, and that will be only to international makers. So that way that, you know, anyone who is making and joining along internationally, you will be able to get a prize as well. And so the first prize, which I will be giving to a winner again in the US or Canada, is actually technically what you see here. Won't be exactly this, but you will get a sweater's quantity worth of Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool, and I will actually be hand sewing a town bag for you. So it actually, as you all have seen this one on the channel quite a bit, if you are a returning viewer, this is my color blocked town bag. I made it in a brown and a burgundy that I had in my stash. And so the one that I'm giving away will be sewn in the all espresso color. So it'll be all brown with, you know, the beige trimmings and all of that. So you're going to get a project bag and a sweater's quantity worth of yarn. And then again, I'll have 3 winners that will win digital pattern copies. And so I'm still determining what patterns I'm going to give away. And I'll figure out the logistics about that or around that a little bit later. So yeah, so in terms of where to buy your fisherman's wool, of course, any big box craft store if you are in the US or Canada. I believe in the EU you can get it through Lovecraft. You know, I believe Amazon will ship internationally as well. Like if you have, I think you can buy it through Amazon. I know we can buy it through Amazon here, so I assume Amazon internationally will also have Lion Brand fisherman's wool, maybe. So hopefully you can get your hands on some of this amazing rustic 100% wool yarn, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then, you know, if you are a designer or a maker and you would like to donate anything to the KAL, definitely get in touch with me, and we can announce the official prizes when I kick off the KAL. So I wanted to let you all know that I was coming so that you have plenty of time to actually get your fisherman's wool before the KAL starts, and then we will cast on August 1st. So I'm really excited to be hosting my first KAL, and this was kind of like for me, it was kind of like I'm saving money because I'm going to Rhinebeck and I need to save up my change. So if you are also someone who's budgeting for Rhinebeck, or who's just budgeting in general, or you just want to join along, because obviously I knit with this yarn even when I'm not on a budget, then we can knit along together on the road to Rhinebeck. I personally know that I will be entering in my sweater into Casey of Young Folk Knits and Becky's their KAL, which is like, I think it's like the camper to Rhinebeck KAL, since obviously I can't join my own KAL, although I will be posting in the thread so you all can see it. So I know personally I will be joining another Rhinebeck KAL, but I guess this is technically a Rhinebeck KAL of sorts, for anyone who is either going or not going, or you just want to join in. So that is all that I have for you all today. I hope that you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed researching and making it. As always, if you did enjoy the video and you liked my content, please do all the things like subscribe and click the bell icon so you're notified every time I post a video. It really helps my channel out, and I will see you next week with a brand new video. Bye.